We are recording.
We're recording. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Hand raising. Tom Cowan. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can see you too.
Okay, great. Yes, my name's Tom Cowan. And while I'm on the board of directors of the San Juan Preservation Trust, I'm not representing the trust this morning. I'm speaking only for myself. I've known a lot of you for years, but I've not met several of you. So by way of introduction, I'll just say I was a land bank commissioner for many years. And prior to that, I was an elected county commissioner for 12 years. I really want to say two things this morning. I want to compliment the commission on the way it handled the Glenwood Inn confusion, especially real. Sandy is very thorough in her research. She's also very thoughtful in her review and clear and articulate in her written correspondence and verbal testimony. And Sandy's leadership really should be appreciated by everyone, and I think it is. Thank you, Sandy.
Oh, thank you. Very kind.
The second thing I wanted to talk about is way back in 1989, I organized and led all of the meetings that designed the land bank for San Juan County. And I was the lead author of the ordinance. Probably the two most significant declarations in the ordinance are its very broad conservation purposes as defined in the beginning, and then also at the end, the restriction of the council authority that it must ratify or reject the annual acquisition and expenditure plan in its entirety and can't amend the plan. This ordinance has worked very well for well over 30 years, so well that no changes were proposed in the two times that the land bank has been reauthorized. While probably not needed, if there are any meetings or workshops with the land bank and the county council to better understand relationships as defined by this ordinance, and if you think I may be able to contribute, I would be happy to participate. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. A great offer, Tom. Thank you very much. And for all your many years of service.
Thank you.
All right. Looking for anyone else with their hand raised. I'm not seeing anyone. If you're raising it and you don't have your video on, I won't know. So you need to raise it by clicking the hand on the toolbar. All right.
Sandy,
Yes.
if you click on the little thing down at the bottom that has what looks like icons for people.
Yes.
That'll show you the everybody that's in on the call, and the hands show there too.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at, and I had only seen Tom's hand. So is there anyone in your room that has their hand raised?
I didn't hear the second part. Is there anyone in the room who wants?
Nobody here that would like to speak.
Okay. All right. Then we'll conclude the public comments and go on to the July 15, 2022 meeting minutes approval. Are there any commissioners wishing to make corrections to the minutes? All right. Well, then the July 15th minutes are approved as is. Very, very thorough, as always. Very much appreciated. So then we'll next go on to chair and commissioner reports. Are there commissioners here wishing to make a report?
Yeah.
Is that Brian? Yes.
Sandy, I have my hand raised. I guess you didn't say it.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to do two land bank tables, one in July and one in August. The first one with Peter and Craig Canine from the
Tables where? Clarify where
Oh,
the tables
I'm
were.
sorry, at the East Sound Green Saturday Market. Okay. And the first one was with Peter and Craig Canine from the Trust. And it was good opportunity, I think, to do a table with the Trust because I found, and I'm not surprised, that there were a lot of people who really didn't understand the both the connection and the difference between the land bank and the preservation trust. So it was a good idea to be able to explain that and also to be able to show them our partnership. And then the second table a couple of weeks ago with Andrew, and it was a nice opportunity to sit down and really meet Andrew. And we had a lot of good feedback for the land bank and particularly for the new North Shore acquisition. A lot of local folks really excited about that. Lots of kudos for the annual report too, which I guess had just come out. I don't see Tanya here, but I have to say that the crossword puzzle was evidently a big hit. Speaking of the annual report, I'll just say that I think that it's really important that we do events like this on a regular basis, particularly going into the next couple of years of the re-up to the REIT. And we need more giveaways in order to have some land bank takeaways. I think people need information. People need also need information they can show. Land bank bumper stickers. I think if we can have hats and t-shirts, stuff like that will be very important for land bank recognition going into our re-up. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian. I'm just making some notes here to share with Tanya. Tanya, I believe, is at the fair today. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So she's out there doing her land bank, representing us right now to the fair that I understand is going really, really well.
She might be in the pie booth.
I think she is in the pie booth. So are there any other commissioners wishing to speak and give a report? Okay, then I'll start with my chair report. A few announcements. We will have three empty commissioner seats at the end of this year. Both Miles and David are transitioning off the islands. Very sorry to see both of them not be able to continue. David's is an at-large position. Miles is a district position for District 3. And then Jim is finally terming out. He is District 1. So just making that announcement early, being that we have 3 positions to fill, not 1 or 2. We need to all start thinking about who might bring some different strengths to the commission. One of the things we talked about during our last couple of meetings was missing Doug Strandberg greatly, who happens to be here today. Thank you, Doug. And the potential of maybe having another real estate or land use attorney if they were willing to. So that's one hole that potentially we might want to look at filling. Anyway, so I'll put that out there. The county is required to advertise 45 days beforehand, but the the land bank and different advisory boards can advertise sooner. And so I would recommend that. We can talk to, I'll talk to staff about that. Other news on the commission is that Mike Pickett is willing to transition into being our finance officer, being that Jim will be terming off. We thought it would be good to have a transition period. So thank you, Mike, for agreeing to take that on. And a couple of other things coming our way. I don't have it in hand yet, but over the last few months, the council adopted a new ordinance. I don't know the exact name, but it has to do with advisory board code of conduct. So that's something that we will get. Maybe we'll have it before the next meeting. It would be good for all of us to have, as well as new commissioners coming on. I don't know what goodies are in there, but it's something that is in effect, so we need to abide by it. And let's see, just two other little things I wanted to mention. After the August 2nd council meeting, I've been in touch with Mike Thomas, so I'm trying to keep those lines of communication open as we move forward. He's been on vacation, so hasn't had the opportunity to meet with me or any other commissioners, but the goal is to build more positive relations with other county staff. And with that, I just wanted to give kudos, a shout out to Christine Minnie. Many of you know her role as only giving us a council update during the meetings, which is much more extensive and regular than I think we've had in the past. But what you don't know is Christine has been available to me. We probably communicate on at least a weekly basis and really helped me navigate through this last issue and other issues that we've had in the past. And that's been invaluable. So that's something that goes on behind the scenes that I'm very appreciative for. So thank you, Christine, for that. And that is all I have for chair reports. Lincoln. Lincoln, you're muted.
I was just saying it looks like Jim's got his hand up.
Jim has his hand up. Jim, did I miss you and I went ahead? Okay.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
I noticed something in the council meeting from August 2nd, towards the end, where there was discussion about the quote unquote town to Zylstra Trail. I don't know if any other commissioners are aware of this, but I think it's important that we need to differentiate this in a way that, this is not a land bank project. It's a county project. And yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge, but I wish them the best of luck in making this happen. But it's not a land bank project.
Okay, all right. First that I've heard of it, or maybe we've heard of it. Thank you for that. If there's someone who's talking in the background, could you please mute yourself?
I didn't try to do anything. So just listen. Stand there.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Jim. Any other commissioners with anything to add? Okay. All right, then we,
Brian.
yes, Brian. Muted.
Still
I had just
muted.
unmuted myself. Okay. On the subject of new commissioners, I just wanted to say, particularly for Christine's benefit, because I don't think that we've been through new commissioners since you've been a county commissioner, but we like to get an advance on the process and be able to meet and potentially interview new commissioner candidates well before their appointment. So this has been important to us. I guess you won't be chair next year, but I hope you'll continue to be our land bank liaison. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood our process generally. Thanks.
Just a correction to that, Brian. Christine was involved in reappointing you and also appointing Mike Pickett earlier this year. So she has been through it. We went through, we did go through that. So
That's true. How could I forget? I apologize.
Okay. All right. So now we have our new standing segment with participation from the San Juan Preservation Trust, and Angela Anderson, Executive Director, is here to share with us partner updates. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you, Sandy, or thank you, Chair, and good morning, Commission. First, I'd like to share some news about the Preservation Trust. We recently applied to renew our accreditation status with the Land Trust Accreditation Commission. And we do this, it's about a 5-year process every 5 years. So we were originally accredited back in 2012. We were reaccredited in 2017, and we've applied for reaccreditation again. And accreditation is a mark of distinction signifying that we've demonstrated and implemented the highest standards of practice, financial, ethical, governance, as well as long-term stewardship of our land. So we will be hearing back from the Commission later in the year, but I did want to share that update because and also in terms of the rigor that our staff has gone through to go through this process. The other great news that I wanted to share today is regarding our grant submission. We had received news from that the Technical Advisory Group and the Citizen Advisory Group of the Salmon Recovery Program have provided recommendation for funding of the North Shore CE in the amount of $942,865. So this is going to be a big step towards our goal for the total funding. They are proposing this to this, and it's going to go to the board in later in September. So we'll find out probably at the end of September whether or not we will have those funds in hand for next year. So this is some great news on that front. And if we are successful on that grant, those funds will be reduced from the large cap PSAR fund grant that we also applied for. And we will not have news on that grant until later in the legislative year in 2023. Next, just as an update, and we're continuing to fundraise for the Lopez Hill Addition CE. As you probably recall, this is an exciting 3-partner collaboration with the Conservation Land Bank, excuse me, the Lopez Community Land Trust, and SJPT. This multi-phase project has been in the works over the last 3 years. The plan is to close the CE by the end of the year, and we have a draft over to the land bank now for review, and we are awaiting the comments back. But SJPT in the meantime are continuing to fundraise, and we have an anonymous donor who is willing to put up a dollar per dollar match for donations received by October 21st. So we very much encourage folks to go to our website and donate because in order to purchase the SCE and fulfill our side of the deal, we will need to reach that goal. So we're working on that presently. And also as an update, there's a project, the Ihaya Preserve, that we closed on earlier at the end of the year last year. And this is a little different partnership where we have the fee and the Conservation Land Bank owns the conservation easement. And we have been working together, coordinating with the Conservation Land Bank staff, as well as our staff, and working with the youth conservation crews to do a trail work out on the property and improve the public access there. And so that has been taking place over the summer, and there's just been a lot of activity there, and especially with the youth conservation corps, they've been working really diligently to get that work done. So it's still underway, but we're looking forward to completing by this fall Bog Bridge to protect the conservation values there on the property. And I just want to also put a plug that our stewardship staff really have appreciated the coordination with the land bank, and also in the stewardship updates that are included in the commission meeting packets. These have been really helpful for collaborations. And that's what I have.
Great, thank you. Also to mention that following this meeting today, a few of us from land bank commissioners, Brian, myself, Jim, and Lincoln, and also Peter Guiazet, will be joining Angela and other staff and a few board members at the Preservation Trust for our quarterly meeting. We're resuming those, and today is the first of the continuation. So thank you. All right. Now we are on to council update with Ms. Minnie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just saw 3 new emails come in, so you're going to hear them because I'm unmuted when they come through the second time, because that's how it works on my computer. Also, it is raining outside, I want you to know, and that makes my Scottish heart really happy. So I am here for the usual council update. The first item on my agenda is to tell you that council has put forth a proposed road levy lid lift for the 2022 ballot. The current road tax amount is insufficient to meet current need for adequate maintenance of roadways and marine facilities, to repair the growing list of storm damaged culverts and roads in a timely manner, or to provide for right-of-way enhancements for the benefit of pedestrians and cyclists. Being dependent on grant money at this time, which has been true for some time, is unreasonable and ineffective. Current public works revenues versus expenditures is challenging, particularly when several important infrastructures are failing at an increased rate. Our ask is to increase the current levy rate of 56 cents per $1,000 to $1 per 1,000 assessed value. This will generate approximately $4 million within the first year. And I found this really interesting, but the county possesses no evidence that it has raised the road levy via voter approval ever. I don't know how that works, but that's that's the memo I got. A successful levy lid lift will avoid reductions in service and will serve to fund ongoing road work, marine infrastructure maintenance projects, plus provide future shelf-ready plans for shoulder enhancements. The new communications coordinator is developing a website to articulate the many and varied needs across the county with an online interactive map that will highlight key projects. And this should be live very soon. I personally am just, very excited, reservedly, that this could benefit Public Works, because boy, do they struggle with the funding that they currently have.
Christine, can
yes,
I ask
ma'am.
you a question about that before you
Yes.
continue on?
Of course.
The shelf-ready plans for shoulder enhancements, was it discussed, or would you put a word in for us that the land bank often hears from the public wanting to have parking within the road right away at the end of public roads that abut the shoreline? There are all of these various public access points at the end of county roads abutting the shoreline, but without an ability to pull 1 or 2 vehicles over. There's only a few that allow you to. So that would be on the public's wish list. You might.
Yes, ma'am. I'm taking note of that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that I want to make sure I answer the question. If there was a specific question, I understand what you just said as a wish and a further conversation for this very topic. So if me saying that I heard you is good enough, then great. But
I think that's good enough.
Okay, and we can keep talking about that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Council recently allocated REIT 2 funds to the Parks Department for 2 projects. The first project is a permanent skate park made of concrete versus plywood. I don't even know how they make a skate park of plywood. I mean, I guess you could, but it just seems bound to fail, which in fact it is failing. And this is the skate park at Lopez Village that was built in 2013, apparently by a very specific skateboard brand for an event that seemed like a big deal at the time. But anyway, it has become the property of the Parks Department, and they are very excited about replacing it with a new skate park, which will cost $550,000 for both design and build. And the second project, not nearly as exciting, received an allocation of $50,000 to design and engineer a plan to address stormwater issues at the fairgrounds, which will ultimately result in future paving and striping. And if you spend any time at the fairgrounds, you know that's going to be quite a benefit to that space, I do believe. The Housing Advisory Committee recommended and council supported funding for emergency rental assistance programs administered by the San Juan Island, Orcas, and Lopez Island Family Resource Centers. The amount of funding available for this program has fluctuated since the beginning over the years, and it started at $6,000, which was in 2015, and it is now at $44,000 for 2022. San Juan County recently applied for a $1 million grant from the Historic Courthouse Grant Program administered by the state. This will begin necessary repairs on our county courthouse after receiving a seismic report earlier this year, which made it terribly evident that we have work to do on very specific retrofitting. And the county will continue beyond this $1 million grant ask to pursue other grants to further that work. This is a big one. San Juan County Public Works and its many subcontractors are closing in on the finish line of completing the Prune Alley project. It is a major milestone for all involved. Mostly, I think, because it's on time and perhaps even a few days ahead of schedule. But I do look forward to the opportunity to see those results and for the residents of Orcas to have that thoroughfare open again. There is a rumor, and it's only a rumor, that there will be a ribbon cutting ceremony that will take place on or around September 1st. So stay tuned. I have a lot of very current, up-to-date information, detailed information about the boat that sunk on the west side of San Juan Island. And it's far too much to talk about here. Although if anybody had specific questions that they wanted to ask about that, I suspect I would have the answers for them. And I just want to echo what Brian said about the crossword puzzle, because when I saw that, after I pulled it out of my mailbox, I thought, this is brilliant. I wish Tanya were here to hear that. I took a note that I wanted to address something. Oh, it was that I did work with Sandy and Lincoln on the placement earlier this year of commissioners. But the other thing, and we did talk about that, the other thing that I did want to address was the fact that there, like Sandy mentioned, there is now an official code of conduct policy. That is what it's called, Sandy. And I will obviously make sure that you have a copy, and we can talk more about that between us, but then for a future bigger conversation with the commission. Mike.
Hi, Christine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I have a question. I've been reading a lot about the water problems that the country is facing in different parts, particularly the West. And I remembered that there was a study that was a grant that was given by the U.S. Geological Survey and the state of Washington to do a study of water availability, sustainability in the San Juan Islands. I haven't, that was about a year ago that I read this. I haven't seen anything about that since then. I was wondering if you had any information about the status of that. It was supposed to be completed this year. I'd just be curious as to how we can keep up on the status of that particular project. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. I do not have a current status. I do know that it has been ongoing and that it was expected to take at least a year. And what I will be happy to do, though, is find out the very current status of that and share it with you and, in fact, the whole commission if they're interested. That's as simple as a phone call to Health and Community Services for me. So I'm happy to do it.
Great, thank you.
You bet. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, well then lastly, I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Sandy Friel for being a reasonable and effective voice as chair of the Land Bank Commission. Sandy's willingness to understand and address concerns through the recent difficult challenges have proven valuable, I think, not only to the Land Bank, but also to me personally as a council member and as the Land Bank liaison. And I look forward to working with Sandy and all of you, don't get me wrong, as we develop future processes. So thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Christine. And thanks for the very thorough update.
You bet.
Good. All right, moving on, director's reports with an exciting announcement, I think. Had Lincoln, acquisitions report, acquisitions update.
So I've only got one project to talk about today. I'm going to share my screen. This is the Hauschka property up on Katy Mountain, which we closed on yesterday. And it's a 40-acre tract, which has some amazing views, some really great ecological attributes. We were fortunate enough to get Christine up there a couple of months ago. But it's also adjacent to the rest of our Katy Mountain Preserve. So this is what the preserve looked like prior to yesterday. And now today it looks like this. So we've gone up another 40 acres. And you can see the Hauschka parcel here. Really an important piece and just a continuation of our effort to create this larger conservation area in the northern part of San Juan. I'll come back to that. Well, actually, now I've got the slide right here. So this is the parcel in question. This is the Katy Mountain Preserve, the National Historical Park English Camp, and you can see some of the other properties we have on the northern part of the island. So we've been pretty successful at working toward creating larger areas. Obviously, there are some pretty major gaps left, but we'll be working on those going forward. And these are just some shots from the property. That's looking north toward Turtleback, some Gary Oaks, and older Douglas fir on the property. And another Turtleback shot. Or you can't have just one. So there's the next one. And then another view looking off to the southeast from the property. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. It was took quite a while to get this one through the door, but we're just really excited about having it. The access to this property will be via trail. So we have yet to open officially access to the Katy Mountain Preserve after such a long time, but since we acquired the Lester property back in 2018, the plans have been to access the entire area off of Three Corner Lake Road, which is a public road, and people will be able at some point to walk from there all the way to the top of Katy. And I'm pretty sure Doug McCutcheon wants to say something about this.
Yeah, I'm just, this is a property that I never thought was going to be something that was be within our reach. It's really a fantastic place, both ecologically and its potential, for public access. And I'm just really, I'm blown away that we've pulled this together. And just looking at sort of the size and the scale, the connections of this preserve that's been pieced together, I really think we should celebrate not just this transaction itself, but how many transactions have happened over a 30-year time span to kind of piece this all together. It's really remarkable. It's a lot of work, and it's really a cause for celebration. So I really want to thank Lincoln for getting this one through the finish line. It was pretty epic. And all the support from everybody from John Kane, I think also kind of was a big, huge force you mentioned in getting this done. So thank you so much. I'm super excited about it.
And that's really all I've got for now.
So Tanya isn't here, of course. She's doing something with pies. But can we get a word back to her about coming up with some kind of a celebration? I know at the very least, we should do an announcement, a press release on it. Yeah.
We've been working on a press release for it. And I don't know if we have a quote from you, Christine, yet, but hopefully we'll get one.
Not yet, but I'll send it today.
Great.
And then how do we, it feels worthy of a thank you to the sellers. I mean, maybe we've already done that, but so refreshing to, I don't know the whole history, but to be working with conservation sellers that are not putting something on the market and creating all the stress that's related to that and then carrying it back. So maybe that could be included somehow.
Definitely. And as you all know, we do have another parcel that we are attempting to purchase from them down adjacent to Mount Grant. But that one is caught up in a lawsuit over Prohaska Road, so it's kind of held in limbo for now. But obviously, we've spent a lot of time with them, probably at least a decade at this point. But great people.
Great, very exciting. Thank you. Somehow we are 20 minutes early before break, so let me see here. What if we went ahead and flipped over to the stewardship report, and then we'll have a commission discussion after the break. That would be, I don't know if Aaron would be presenting the Watmow Addition Interim Management Plan.
Yeah, I think Amanda and I are both here.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So did the commission have time to review that? I guess that would be my first question.
Not me yet, but Mike says yes.
Yeah, I was able to read through
it. Yes, I did.
So some did.
Me too.
Did.
Great, thank you for doing that. Do you have any specific questions at this time, or I'm not sure if you wanted to discuss this now, Sandy, or if you were looking more broadly into the stewardship report.
I'm not sure. Lincoln put it as a bullet item.
Can I just interject? I think it'd be great, Aaron, if you spent a minute talking about this plan and what it is. It's an interim plan as opposed to a full plan. This is kind of our first reveal of it. And after the commission has an opportunity, and staff really has not had an opportunity, to all staff that is, to take a look at it. But if you could just take a minute to go over the key details. This is a placeholder plan. That's basically where we are.
Sure. So I think that is kind of the key detail, the interim plan process. We're also using the term lately for stabilization. After taking ownership of a property, really looking at all the various assets and values, doing a lot of assessments or initiating professional assessments to help us learn more about the values, hazards, and that's pretty much what this plan lays out. Various values, resources that we know about, and also acknowledges that there is public interest and will continue to guide them in the interim period while we sort out more. I think what's unique about this property as well is just more the uncertainty around the potential ownership in the future. And so the acquisition history lays that out. You know, initially we were thinking this would go to the BLM, but we're holding on that and have applied for grants. So just trying to be transparent, I think, with the public, and then also organized about having a strategic approach to a strategy for long-term, thoughtful stewardship. Amanda, I'd love for you to offer anything.
Well, I think Aaron and Lincoln laid it out pretty well. So we're just asking for an initial review and any comments. I've already thought about adding in the option of a caretaker, just to keep that on the table. The possibility, which we have discussed before, but I realized we didn't include in this initial plan. So if you want to make verbal comments now, if you want to make written comments and submit them to Aaron and myself, that's what we're looking for now.
Yeah, hey Amanda, it's Miles.
Hi, Miles.
Hey, so one of the questions in it's addressed in the interim management plan is about the structure itself, because it does have historical value, yet it's in disrepair. And I'm just curious what your initial thoughts are on there. I know that the plan says that you're going to be looking for public feedback on what would be a good use for that, but if you had any thoughts at this time, or a timeline too on when it would be functional, if it's going to be kept.
I guess I don't have a timeline on making it functional. The initial comments that I've received, especially during our tours, is that there is a lot of interest in keeping the structure. People really see it as a piece of Lopez history. And even noting that it needs repairs, they'd like to see at least an attempt to preserve the structure in some way. So I think we just need to find out more and maybe be creative and open to just like exploring that.
Thanks.
Might there be any grants available for restoring it as a historic structure?
It's possible. We have not really explored that option, and it's also pretty complicated in that, for example, for the Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account grant, we're applying for just to hedge our bets in case BLM is not going to be the ultimate owner. We've had to basically draw a line around this and a couple of other structures to exclude them from the grant. And whether it's treated as a residential structure will be a key question in appraisal for that grant. If it were included, we would have to tear it down or move it. So we can't do that. And we're not really sure how BLM is going to react to the structure either. So we've just got an awful lot of work and research to do.
Okay.
I think I'd like to also, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, but it's not registered historic, which I think would make grants challenging. So it has a lot of historic value, but it doesn't meet the top tier of, a designation.
Got it. Okay, so you have three commissioners with hands up. Brian?
Okay, I don't really have any specific comments, pardon me, about the plan. I think it looks very good in general. But about the process, I'm glad that we're doing this process of interim plans. I think it's important to secure a property, and congratulations to both of you, Aaron and Amanda, for getting this one on the track really quickly, I think. The issues that you have identified are good ones, and Amanda, I'm really glad to hear the comment that you just made about the potential caretaker. That was the one thing that I was thinking about, because like our North Shore property on Orcas, this is a really attractive property to the public, and it strikes me that it's going to be a lot of responsibility and a lot of work to not only to maintain, but to secure from public activity, particularly with the historic and prehistoric cultural assets. So I think that's a really important question to consider over the next couple of years. And I realize that with the uncertainties about the BLM and and the historic house, that it's kind of a chicken and egg question, and it's a tough one, but I think it's a good focus. So thanks for mentioning that.
Okay, Mike.
Right, thank you. So how often, let me put it another way, how quickly after we acquire a property are we expected to have a sustainability plan, a management plan? Is it a year, 2 years, 3 years? Sorry, Lincoln, go.
We're supposed to begin working on a management plan within a year of owning a property, which
Okay,
makes a lot of sense. It gives us a year to really take a look at what we've got and come to some understanding. But that process can go from there for quite some time. So our approach lately in the last few years has been to do an interim plan just to outline, you know, what analysis we're going to be doing, what the status is of the property. For example, this one will remain closed to public access during the interim plan period, although we will be having field trips out there for the public so they get an opportunity to see it. But this is just a way to get something out there so people have a better understanding of what we're doing and where we're headed.
that's great. I think it's a great process. It's good to have a stake in the ground that says, here's phase one, if you will, of this management process, and you'd update the community and update the commission as we go along until we get the final management plan. I do have another quick question. I thought I remembered from an earlier meeting that we were having a little bit of trouble with folks accessing the property when we preferred they would not. And I wondered if there was an update on how that's going. We were going to put new signs and stuff like that. Thanks.
Yeah, certainly, you know, when we bought the property, there had been informal public use there for years, and a lot of Lopez knew the people who had lived there, so had just kind of continued to informally go out there. And we did have some incidents where our signs were removed and our gate tampered with, but we've replaced those and repaired the gate. And there was a gate further up Watmow Head Road that is in the process of being rebuilt, but all of the neighbors have agreed to just close the gate that's there. So that has really improved the situation, it appears. There's not cars driving down there. And we've closed off other informal social trails through neighbors' properties and posted signs. So it appears to be a lot better than it was earlier this summer. And then I think also with the tours and giving people an opportunity to visit has also helped.
I'll just mention a couple of things that this property and the Hauschka property do have one thing in common, at least, in that our plan here for public access really will be to utilize the existing Watmow parking area that we share with BLM, that is on BLM property, and access this property via trail and not utilize the private road, except in maybe if we're trying to get people out there who have limited mobility or something like that. Same situation for the Hauschka property. It's accessed via private road. We do have an easement to get to the property, but we're not intending to use that for public access. Primary access will be by a trail.
Amanda, have you had issues with over the summer boaters dinghying up to shore?
No. I think it probably happens on occasion, but I have not seen it. No, I haven't had issues.
David?
Yeah, I was just curious how often you're giving tours and how many people have come out to see the place.
Yeah, initially I had scheduled 3, so 1 a month, and they filled up pretty quickly. We had a wait list. We grouped those back in. So for the month of August, been doing weekly tours, and they've been mostly full and then for some reason this week we had 1 person, but we continued to have the tour anyway in case anybody just dropped in. So yeah, mostly 10 around 10 people per tour.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And as far as the interim management plan, is that something that once we give feedback, commissioners and staff give feedback prior to the 29th, there will be a final one for us to review at next meeting? And is that something that's part of a public hearing, or is it different because it's interim?
Well, our plan was to get feedback from you all and then have a public comment period.
Okay.
So we haven't clarified exactly how long that period is going to be. So
Okay.
I'm not sure when the final one's going to come back to you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So next is the let's call it the North Shore update. And that would be Peter, I believe, unless Lincoln, you wanted to lead off, or?
Well, I think we'll let Peter do it. I saw him earlier.
I see.
There he is.
I'm here. Teams is pretty buggy. It just logged me out for some reason, but anyway, morning everyone. So we just had our 3rd tour of the site, and I think we had about 20 people yesterday, and it was pretty fun. It's these tours I think are helpful to people, giving folks a chance to look around and see what's going on there, but also really helpful to me, helping me refine my elevator speech and kind of see the site through their eyes a little bit. So especially helpful in this early planning stage. So I think those are going to continue 3 times a month. Probably going to have to adjust the schedule a little bit to make them earlier as it gets darker, but I'm kind of thinking they're something we should just continue until maybe the dead of winter if nobody wants to be out there in the rain and darkness. But and then just generally spending a lot of time trying to line up the various assessments, the cultural resource assessment and the geotech assessments for starters, looking at the water system and the electrical system and some general maintenance items. So that's all coming along pretty well. With Andrew's help, we put together a request for quotes for an automated gate system, and we'll be getting those pretty soon. That'll help with thinking about whether that's an affordable option for managing access both during the interim period and permanently. I think it's probably a really good way to go there. A gate that would close, it would be open dawn and dusk, and otherwise would keep the site closed. Starting to work on the interim plan a little bit, just kind of sketching that out, and also thinking about a sort of a budget, thinking about an amendment in the fall potentially to cover some of these, unanticipated expenditures, really, since we didn't own the property when we started the budget process. So I'll be sending that to Lincoln before too long, a prioritized budget wish list. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. Happy to answer questions.
Well, I was very impressed to see your timeline, the detailed timeline with all the steps and where in a visual graph, it was easy to absorb. Appreciate that detail.
Thanks. Very provisional, as I put at the top, just kind of helping me line up things and estimate my time on different things. So we'll just update that periodically. Tanya's been pretty helpful getting all that stuff on the website. Tanya and Aaron both, trying to have some clear language on the web page that people can go to, and we'll update those graphs periodically. Aaron Rock's also been great with the contracting. I'm hitting him a lot with scopes of work. So,
Mike?
Yeah, quick question. I noticed, Sandy, you referred to it as the North Shore Project. Is this a new name that we're going to give it now? I know that we may rename it. Are you just testing it?
Well, what I've seen is the Preservation Trust, and also I've seen it referred to North Shore. So I'm assuming that we're trying to transition to that, and even that's a placeholder for a permanent name. Tell me how you'd like to. Should we be referring to it as North Shore?
I am mostly, and we're putting Glenwood in parentheses. Sort of. I'm thinking gradually phasing that out, but keeping some name recognition there. But yeah, I think the Preservation Trust is calling it North Shore, and I think that's a good interim name.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah. Something that I forgot to mention in my commissioner's report is that when Andrew and I were out at the Saturday market a couple of weeks ago, we had a number of comments from the immediate neighbors of the property, and they were all just so positive, and that's really important when you have a property like that along a long private road that's bordered by neighbors. So just shows, Peter, what a great job that you've done in paving the way, so to speak, with our neighbors. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's been a high priority, and I feel pretty good about where things are going at this point.
Good, really good. And then this, I guess, might be a good time to mention that we, after this meeting, when we meet with the Preservation Trust, one of our topics is a public event to be held at the North Shore property later in September. We have a date, September 24th, Saturday, that corresponds with the National Public Lands Day. This isn't firm because we haven't met with them about it, but that's what we're batting around. So for those who would want to attend that, pencil that in. I know Christine has it on her calendar. And so just, and Peter and Tanya will help us coordinate that. So I don't know if by having so many tours, if we won't really have anyone at the public event, but we felt it was important to have a thing. And sorry, Brian will be in Portugal. He'll miss it. Okay, last on the stewardship report on the agenda, contributions to stewardship fund. So I added this. If you remember last fall's budgeting, we had an issue where the budget committee, which didn't agree with how much we're putting away for our stewardship fund each year, made a line item change, and there was a kerfluffle over that, and we got it straightened out and got it approved with what we typically have been putting away. And then I promised Christine and Cindy that this year we would have a meeting with the budget committee to really look at the amount that we're putting away, given that we have acquired so much more property over the years. And though we're currently in a, would it be considered a biannual budget? So we're budgeted for the 2 years, and we thought, well, maybe we can put that off till next year, but actually the budget committee would like us to meet this year, and they would like it to be in September, according to Mylene. And so that would be something we would ask our finance officer, Mike Pickett, once he's up to speed with Jim Skoog, to participate in that with Aaron and Lincoln. Anything else to add, Lincoln or Christine?
No, I think that'll be a good thing for us to do, to revisit this whole issue and talk it through.
I have nothing to add. You articulated that well.
Okay, great. This I'm looking at as one of several steps that we can take, many steps to be proactive in creating open lines of communication with other county departments instead of waiting to a last minute and kind of end up in a tug of war over something. So so I'm glad that we're doing that. Brian, you raised your hand? Or no?
No, Sandy.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Who's on the county budget committee besides Eileen?
So she told me it's a different list than what you told me, Lincoln. Or at least this is who she told me would be in the September meeting, would be Mylene, Natasha, who will be replacing Mylene at the end of the year. Molly, do you know who Molly is?
Molly is works in the auditor's office.
Okay, in auditor's office. Mike Thomas and Mark Tompkins. Does that sound right, Lincoln? And Christine, that's what she gave.
Yeah, there are a couple of different
versions.
The finance committee itself is Jamie and Mylene and Rhonda. But when we present budgets initially, or talking initially with county administration about budgets, this is more the team that's there for that. So that's basically what we're doing this time around.
Okay, all right. Okay, so with that, I would just leave it up to Lincoln, Aaron, and Mike to coordinate that September date. The reason they wanted September is because of budgeting in October, I believe. And then Jim is going to work with Mike, and hopefully Lincoln will too, in bringing him up to speed. But what I'm interested in is to get Mike's fresh set of eyes on it, so that we don't automatically rubber stamp what we have done in the past, and just get a fresh financial take on the strategy. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back. Let's come back at 9:55. All right.
Andy, it looks like you're talking, but we can't hear you. And you're not muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was mumbling. So yeah, looking for David. Is David back yet? David and Miles. Okay, David's here. Miles, are you here? I hear something. Okay, well, we'll just get started then. This is in a way, a continuation of our last two meeting discussions. It's been on the list, but we never got to it. And that is reviewing the process, where the commission fits in, where staff fits in, and where council fits into making decisions on projects, land bank projects. So I made a rudimentary flow chart with what I thought to be correct, and Lincoln added a few things, tweaked a few things. And so I first wanted to ask all commissioners, do you see anything on this chart that is missing or have questions about it? Does this pretty much represent the complete process? Did anyone look at the flow chart?
Yeah, I looked at it, Sandy. Thanks for putting it together. It is actually helpful for me because I didn't really know the last part of it after it was presented to the commission where it goes to the council. So that was actually helpful for me to learn about what happens at the end stages.
Okay, good. Yes, Mike.
Yes, Sandy, I was interested in the fact that the Land Bank Commission green lights an acquisition prior to any review or at least one-way dialogue with the San Juan County Council. Now there is the, what do we call that annual thing we do, which I think lists sort of properties that may be acquired in the coming year.
Right, that's the expenditure and acquisition plan.
Right.
And the way it's spelled out in the ordinance is that the commission develops that plan and approves the plan, and then it goes to the council for their approval or rejection. Am I right about that, Lincoln?
Yes, as a whole. So there's no requirement in the ordinance actually to check in with the council prior to that. However, I almost always do take projects to them in executive session because I don't want them to be caught off guard by things that are in the pipeline.
Right. So that was my comment is this sufficient to keep the council posted along the way? So when we get closer to being done, they've given feedback throughout the process, and I just didn't know if this was the first time that they would have seen the project after the commission's already greenlighted, because it's not on this chart that they get reviewed.
Yeah, no, I try and take it to them. It's extra, honestly, according to the ordinance. It's not a requirement, but I certainly don't want to be in a situation where a council member hears about a project from somebody and has no idea that we're even looking at it. So I try and get in there when I can.
Yeah, sure, and I understand that. I'm just saying, is it because it's not in the ordinance? Does that mean we don't need to worry about it, or that it still is good practice to involve them at some point earlier than what's on this chart? If it's not, I'm fine with it. If council's fine with it, we'll avoid issues. So that's all.
My thought is that that until the commission is even in agreement on whether they want to, whether we want to pursue something and put it in our budget, it would be premature to be mentioning to council everything that we might be considering. That would be one aspect. And then the other aspect, and I don't know if Tom Cowan is still on the line and wants to weigh in, but there was in the creation, my understanding is in the creation of the land bank and the commission and the process, there was a deliberate attempt at keeping the two separate, to keeping some autonomy of the commission of deciding projects. And that's part of why that last step he mentioned, where the council can either thumb up or thumb down the whole budget, but can't pull things out of line item. And I'm sure there were good reasons for that. My thinking would be so that there isn't pet projects or extra. Tom's there. Would you like to explain how?
Well, actually, Sandy, you were explaining it quite well.
Okay.
Yes, it was a deliberate. It was, and remember that actually this ordinance was originally written by the county commissioners before there was a council. So we were careful, trying to be quite careful that it didn't get too political, and that there was not trade-offs that would happen that might not be in the best public interest. And I think over the years, it's worked really quite well. And Lincoln just said, even though it's not in the ordinance, it's important to him and for the commission to if there's some public discussion going on about it, you don't want to catch the council unaware. That's for sure. But in terms of and so he does counsel with them and talk to them about possible things. But if it's not on the radar list for the commission, then it really, there's no formal role or official role that would be appropriate for the council. That was deliberate to try to keep the politics out of this as best as possible. And as I said, I think it's actually worked quite well over the years. I think the council has understood that that's in the best public interest, and I think it's really worked well for the commission, because you can do your due diligence on a project and know that you've got if it's going to go forward, it's going forward in the proper manner. So yes, you were explaining it just right, Sandy.
Great, thank you, Tom.
Well, and I suspect that they have quite a bit of a formal advance notice if the expenditure and acquisition plan that is approved by them, the projects take 4 to 6 months to come to fruition. If it's in that plan, that annual plan, then they're aware that it's being considered, it's being reviewed. It may not be done yet, and it may not have been approved by the Land Bank Commission, but it is in the works. And at that point, if they had any feedback, they could provide it, even though it's not required for them or us to communicate at that point.
So it's only it projects only go into that expenditure and acquisition plan when we're ready to budget and we're ready to actually go forward and close on it, or we've still got due diligence or, things like that. But that's the commission approving it officially happens at the start of that, where they approve that expenditure and acquisition plan, and then it's forwarded as a whole with all the projects together and everything else to the council for them to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on. And it's not just annually. We do a lot of amended budgets.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of what we do.
Sure.
We're not on any great schedule when you're trying to do acquisition work.
Yeah, and I think we experienced that this year and last year when projects slipped from one year to the other based on negotiations, et cetera. So I understand that, and I appreciate you got everybody's response to this. My concern is no surprises. That's all.
Thank you. Good. And we also have our diligent council liaison who can communicate things to council as well if it's something that she thinks intersects with what they might need to know about. Okay, so that's good. Question on the executive session part. On executive session, I put possible executive session, both for the commission and also for when you're presenting to council. And it said that you said that you would, if you met with them, it would be an executive session. And I guess I just want to make sure that we're following the rules, the Open Public Meetings Act rules, because it can only be executive session if there's a chance that it would increase the purchase price.
Right. So generally, not generally, in those cases, I'm taking projects to the council in executive session where we don't have a price negotiated. We've got maybe some idea of what it's going to cost, but we haven't concluded those negotiations. So having that conversation in public would certainly open the potential for an increased price. We don't really need the seller to use it as a leverage point. So that's the rationale.
Okay, got it. Let's see. So that's a question, this possible presentation to council, should we formalize that step and say that you do, or you want to keep it open because it could just be a small something that's not worth having a meeting over?
Well, I think the issue here is what you've got laid out is basically what's in the ordinance, as how the process works. That extra step of doing executive session with council, it's not part of the ordinance, and I think opening the ordinance to insert that would be problematic. It's just,
so is it okay that it's on this chart, or should it say optional presentation, or?
I think the way it's written is fine, honestly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anybody else with a question or comment? So I wanted to go back up the chain there where it says property scored. And on the left side, there are 3 different elements feeding into the scoring of the property. One of them says the San Juan County Open Space Plan. And I'm just a little confused and hoping that we can get some clarity here. So in the ordinance, it says an open space and conservation plan for the county is an element of the county comprehensive plan. It includes inventory classification criteria and prioritized ranking of open space landscape units, resources, etc., and defines the parameters of a variety of methods for acquisition. So I had asked the Planning Commission person, since I believe, and Christine can let me know, has the comprehensive plan been approved? Or Planning Commission has approved it and sent it on to council? And I asked her, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it has not been approved, and it has not, the final draft has not come before council yet.
Okay, all right. Okay, she kind of seemed to indicate that they had reached some big mile mark, and I asked, well, where do you have this open space conservation plan or parks trail? Yes, Lincoln, you can fill us in.
Yeah, so the open space plan is a document that was written in 1990. And it was really, it has more than one purpose. It's not just to guide land bank acquisitions. It's largely, and I would say more so, to guide the open space programs where private landowners are trying to get a break on their taxes because they're working farm, or they're in designated forest land, or they want to do timber open space, those kinds of things. And that's predominantly what that ranking goes toward. But I do think, obviously, it's pretty woefully out of date. So, and it has not been updated. There aren't currently any plans to update that as far as I know, but I think that's something that needs to happen. We do use a variety of other tools to help us in prioritizing acquisitions. So that's one. And if you remember, we probably went through this, I don't know which meeting it was. It could have been a year ago, where I talked about how that open space plan ranking went, and gave you some examples and showed you that we've moved way beyond that, just because the context has really changed and what we're trying to accomplish has changed from the beginning, where there was a heavy emphasis on preserving views from public roads, and that would have factored heavily into scoring of different landscapes. And now we're really looking at a lot of different things, from as you've got down there, the Nature Conservancy's Resilient Lands Guide. So we're trying to address resilient landscapes and try and conserve those landscapes in the face of climate change. We've got public access considerations. We have salmon recovery considerations, so prioritizing shoreline conservation, and a variety of other things. The Parks, Trails, Natural Areas plan is one of those, where we go back out to the community every 6 years and talk to them about what people's priorities might be. Well, I'll just stop there. There are a variety of things that are going into how the commission is looking at individual properties.
So the language in this ordinance is out of date. It doesn't really represent the tools that we are using to rank properties. Okay, Brian?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought about while reviewing your chart, was that the three criteria that are on the chart for evaluation are really kind of the core sieve of what we do. And we all know that we have a fairly recently developed and I think still always evolving matrix. You get multiple potential acquisitions, one against the other, which has priority. And there are a bunch of factors that I think, as Lincoln just said, are always evolving and being updated. I didn't say anything about that because, unless it's for the public, and I don't think complicated for this flow chart, so we should just leave them alone.
I'm sorry, you got cut off and you're frozen on my screen again. You said unless it's for the public.
That the criteria that we use to evaluate actions, unless I think that they would be of some interest to the public, but that's really a different flow chart. For purposes of this flow chart, I don't really think that we need to any specific criteria.
Okay, well, my part of my goal with this was to be able to reference sections of code, so that we're making sure that we're following guidelines in the ordinance, because it's not really right to pick and choose what parts to follow. So I like to consider if something is out of date, that potentially we recommend a new wording, because to me this ordinance and a flow chart like this that explains the process should be something that is available to the public to be able to understand. We do get asked this question. When I first met with you, Brian, I said, how do you pick a project? We get that question, and I think this would be a helpful public tool, as well as educating new commissioners and new council people. So I'd be in favor of trying to make this accurate and consider updating the ordinance. I know it can't describe every single thing that we use, but if there's some overall guiding tools, or make it more generic and say don't base it on this 1990 open space plan. What do you think?
To respond
yes,
to that,
go ahead.
If this chart is for the public, as opposed for and council persons, I think it needs to be revised and simplified. I frankly fell asleep before I got to the end of it.
Well, that's just because I didn't put colors and things on it yet. It's not prettied up.
Yeah,
it's just a draft.
Think that the public wants to follow a process. I think we can apply our process, but to me, the public process for the explanation to the public and the understanding between commissioners and council persons are almost two different things, or two levels of complexity. I don't think they're the same.
Okay, moving on. So I didn't get any bites on updating the ordinance. We're okay with just leaving it like it is and having the outdated language in there. David?
I'm unclear as to what it would take to update the ordinance. Who would have to do what in order for that to happen? And what else could happen if we tried to do that?
Like, would it open the whole thing up to picking at it and changing other things? All right, good point. Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I'm curious as to why, after spending all these years on the comp plan, nothing was done by planning to update this. I mean, it's not like it's not of concern. It's something that is talked about regularly. And And if we're using sort of open space definitions as one of the criteria, the question is, that's in the comp plan, and the comp plan's out of date. Is the council, maybe Christine can answer this, is council wondering why the open space and conservation plan that's 30 years old has not been considered as part of this really in-depth review of our comp plan?
I don't know that it's not. We haven't seen the final version that the Planning Commission just approved.
Well, so I asked the chair of the Planning Commission, is there an element, kind of a standalone element within the plan, either the parks, trails, or natural areas or open space conservation plan? Is that part of what they have just approved? And she said no.
I have no answer for that.
Okay.
I have not been involved in that process at this point. And to be completely honest, the open space plan has not been something that I have encountered in my short 18 months thus far. I do know that there is an open space committee that is currently empty. And I do think that this would be a better or a more appropriate conversation maybe to have with the assessor, who I believe has something to do with the open space committee and perhaps understanding the code better. I'm not certain. But I have no ability based on my experience to fill in these gaps.
Got it. Okay, so I have two concerns. One, and you can answer both of them, I'm sure, Lincoln. One is there's a part of the plan that is supposed to be updated for us to be eligible for grant funding, I think. And of course, we're already X amount of years behind on the comp plan, so I don't know that we'd even be eligible once it does get passed in a tardy way. Could you answer that?
Yeah, the thing that needs to be updated in order to remain eligible for state grants is the Parks, Trails, and Natural Areas Plan.
Okay.
So we're currently updating that now. We're expecting to have to be able to submit that to the state before the end of the year. So that's kind of being fast tracked. That's different from the open space plan. It's different from the comp plan. It's not
an element in the plan. It's a whole different document.
No, in the last iteration, they did. The Planning Commission did want to see the non-motorized trail part of it, non-motorized transportation part of it, incorporated into the Parks, Trails, Natural Areas Plan, and that would, they wanted to serve as part of the comp plan. In this round, we've kind of pulled that out again because it's not really a terribly good fit for the Parks, Trails, Natural Areas Plan, but that's a longer conversation.
So, well, my second question / concern is the Parks, Trails, and Natural Areas Plan. Is that not supposed to be getting public input, so that this would be a document that we're using we have some tools of what the public's priorities are?
Yeah.
Is that happening?
Yeah, it does happen. One of the tools we're going to use in this update is the confluence studies that were done in 2018, 2019. And those are pretty exhaustive surveys of residents and visitors about what they wanted to see in terms of trails and natural areas. So I think we've got a lot of that data there. Now it's a couple of years old at this point, but I think that's the best we've got. There will be opportunity for the public to comment on the draft Parks, Trails, Natural Areas Plan, but we're not anticipating what we've done in the past, which is a specific survey around this plan to to the county residents. We feel like we've got that information, but we still want to give people an opportunity to comment. So we will be having open houses, that kind of thing, to provide that opportunity.
Oh, okay. Okay. Christine?
And correct me if I'm wrong, I just wanted to say, from my understanding, the Parks Board is also engaged in this process, and that they are also participating and also allowing public comment in their world, much like you.
Yeah, the Parks Trails Natural Areas Plan is a joint effort between Parks, the Land Bank, and now Environmental Stewardship. So, and also to some degree the DCD, sorry, Department of Community Development. So it cuts across different departments.
Brian?
I'm actually surprised that there has been no interaction or formal consultation between the Land Bank and particularly the Planning Commission on those two elements or plans. And in fact, anything in the comp plan that concerns either open space, public lands, or rural areas of private lands. I think that interaction would be very important, and it's missing.
I will say that DCD has had a lot of turnover. And so we did initiate a conversation with them before the end of last year and made some headway with it, but it's all of those folks are gone now. So that's been an issue, frankly, with keeping that dialogue going.
Good time to start is all I can say about that.
Miles?
Yeah, this is a minor point, but for the scoring, we did have a, it was the potential acquisition matrix, the decision matrix that we were using. And that was, I think, when there were competing properties being considered at the same time, how we prioritize those. And I'm curious where those criteria came from. Was that part of the open space plan, or is that just the land bank mandate? Where did that come from?
So let me share something here. So this is part of the presentation I went through with you all some time back on prioritization of properties. So what you're looking at here is some of the plans that go into helping us prioritize, and you can see that underlying one is the open space and conservation plan. But we've also got a habitat conservation plan and the surveys, which were published in 2020. And on the right-hand side is just part of that matrix we've been using. So that's really how we've been prioritizing. But I just want to skip down here to this. This is kind of the summation slide, where you can see on the upper left what tools we're using to try and develop priorities, and what we've come up with so far. So this is a little bit out of date now, but still pretty good.
Okay. I feel that we're using all of the right tools that we have. I just want to make sure that we're not missing some important step, or like Brian just said, should we be giving input? And I don't really know what's going on with the comp plan. I don't have any. And I think that train has already left the station. Okay, so I'm going to leave the ordinance alone. I'm not going to bring up anything about modifying the ordinance. And maybe I'll just refine what's in that one little box there. The other two things I wanted to look at on this very boring chart is down where it says 10 days notice to the public. So I just wanted to make sure that we are following that, in that it says a draft plan, this is for our expenditure and acquisition plan, shall be available for public review 10 days prior to the date of the hearing. And are we making sure to meet that? I see Lincoln's nodding his head. Yeah, okay. So it's not just we make a meeting announcement and there it is 3 days later. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That gets a gold star. And then the next one, director presents project at San Juan County budget public hearing. What I've understood from Lincoln is there's been some inconsistency in that because of the new budgeting process or something. And
yes,
and this has come to light during this last let's call it the Great Glenwood Gum Up, that a presentation wasn't made, or that they didn't get a copy of the project proposal. And that's where I just wanted to look at this part and make sure that we're going to tighten it up, that the expenditure and acquisition plan will get sent to council. It doesn't just go to the budget committee.
yeah. My recommendation on this is that what's happening now for amended budgets is that the auditor goes to council and makes a presentation, and there are a variety of departments who are thrown into that mix, and she goes over numbers with them. But I would propose that we actually have a separate part of that meeting where we make sure to present any project proposals that we've got, so the council's clearly aware of them, and also any management plans that we've got going, because we need final approval of a management plan needs to be part of that budget process too. But we really need to call them out to make sure that council has an opportunity to see them.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like those two steps are not going to get, you're making sure we have lessons learned and it won't repeat. Okay. Any other questions or comments about the process, the outlined process?
Hi, Sandy.
Yes.
I will say, I mean, you know, I recognize that Brian may be so used to this, it's boring, but it was not boring to me. And obviously very incredibly informative, because frankly, you don't know what you don't know. And we've said that a few times amongst ourselves. And I think that the way it is laid out is very clear. And I think it doesn't even require color, but if you add it, great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Sandy, I'm thinking of, maybe like, remember Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes a law, the cartoon, an animation like that. Maybe we need something like that. Sorry.
Yes, how Bill, how. Okay, so we'll add some cartoons or something. All right, so moving on to the outreach and volunteer report, and Tanya isn't here, but she emailed me some updates to make. She says 2 more days of the county fair. Stop by the land bank booth in the Green Village. Also, she says stay tuned for details as there's beginning planning stages for the National Public Lands Day event at the new North Shore property. The online fall native plant sale with Salish Seeds Nursery returns in September. She will be busy working on getting inventory uploaded to the website to go live in mid-September with an October 1 pickup date on San Juan, Lopez, Orcas, Shaw, and maybe even Waldron. So that's what's happening there. And now we can move on to future agenda items list. There's a list at the bottom of your agenda today. Some of these have been mentioned and brought up in prior meetings. Some have been added because we know that they need addressing. And I added this first one, staffing, because and I'm not sure exactly where to go with it, looking for input, wanting to make sure that the land bank staff has the resources that it needs to complete the tasks, the growing number of tasks. How do we continually add preserves and big projects? Are we stressing out our staff? Are we missing things? Do we need more staff or do we need more contract work? And I just thought it would be worthy of maybe a few commissioners sitting down with Lincoln and kind of reviewing this, so I'm open to discussion here, how you'd like to make this an item, and if you all agree that the commission should participate in that discussion. Brian.
That was just a yes.
Okay, all right. David.
I'd like to know, if hypothetically we were going to add staff, exactly how is that done? Is that a budgeting thing? Is that more than that? I mean, I know that there's been times when the county wasn't going to add workers and, there are other outside forces, but I don't know what it would take if we wanted to say, hire somebody. How do we do that?
It needs to be part of the annual budget process. So ultimately, council makes decisions on the number of FTEs the county has. So they need to make adjustments in that annual process. So that's where it would go. It's theoretically possible to do it as part of an amended budget, but that's generally something that's been discouraged. So
it would be worthwhile tackling this fall to see if we would like to make additional recommendations to be included in their annual budget review. Okay, good. Are there commissioners willing and wanting to work with Lincoln on that, reviewing the reviewing staffing needs? David has his hand up. David
Well,
O'Brien.
I just want to say one more thing.
Yes.
Like, as a commissioner, I would not have any easy way to gauge whether we need more staff. I mean, I would be able to perceive with, to some degree, whether we're addressing stewardship things as quickly as we want to be, or whether we're just asking not enough people to do too much. I mean, I've had the feeling in the past that we're kind of at our limit on what stewardship folks can do. But I mean, there's no clear indicator. I wouldn't know where to look if I wanted to know, do we need more people?
Well, one way might be interviewing individual staff members, getting an anonymous input, that might be something. I know I've had different talks with different staff over the years and kind of just asked, but I haven't documented anything. And that might be something that maybe, we would just need honesty from staff in what they're seeing. And maybe they don't tell Lincoln. That could be something. Maybe they want to, maybe I'm just making this up. Aaron, somebody, staff member. I think that would be one way, because it may be that in order to protect how things are looking, that staff hold back from saying that they need help or something like that. So that would be an idea, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would hope that we could talk openly about it. Doesn't have to be anonymous. We have different opinions, and I think we can work through that too. But I would leave it up to, maybe we have an internal discussion about it and share that with Lincoln to bring to the commission.
Okay.
Appreciate that you're thinking of us.
What do you think, Lincoln? Is that the way to go? You work with staff and kind of just assess everything and then come back to us with the whole commission with recommendations? Okay. So I feel like there's been some fear in the past of not wanting to ask the county for more, not wanting to increase our budget, our expenditures, but we are always way under, or at least of late, way under on our administrative costs as a percentage. I know that we may be coming into some kind of a downturn. We don't know yet, so we wouldn't, it may be that we need more flexibility with contract workers. Maybe there's more things we can contract out so that key staff members remain available. But anyways, okay, so that's a future agenda item, and we'll just wait until you're ready to bring that back to us, Miles.
Yeah, well, one question I would have for Lincoln and the staff in general is if the need for staff is based on supporting what we're currently doing, our current efforts, and more stewardship, just that we're taking on more projects, there's more trails, there's more maintenance, if it's more that, or if there's also an interest in staff for new positions for types of projects that we haven't started that we're considering. Like, as an example, Aaron is doing was a new position, what Charlie is doing was a new position. So if we're needing that type of new role, and I think that would be finding that would be helpful for the commission, since we might be directing you know, if there's new programs that we want to be involved in besides what we're currently doing. So that would be one question I want to find out from Lincoln when he does his survey.
That, and also thinking in terms of leading up to renewal, and we've been making efforts to increase our outreach. These property tours of the new preserves, I think, are just great. So it's good that our stewards are able to fit that in as well. Okay, so future agenda item. Next one, improvement of communications with county council. So I think I don't know that we need this as a whole agenda item. I feel like we're already clipping away at it. We talked about the budget committee. We've just readdressed Lincoln's presentation to the council. We also had decided with the Preservation Trust to have the Preservation Trust involved in front of the council when their participation is included too. Any other? I think we've mentioned wanting to have a complete sit down of commission and council, and I don't know that that's feasible or going to happen. I've been talking with Christine about it, so that's still to be determined. But I'm going to say that I don't really think this is a future agenda items list, a discussion topic. All right, I'll let others look down this, and Lincoln, you too, looking down on the list and see if there's any of these that are rising up to be topics for the next meeting or so. I'd ask Jim. Jim, you're here. Have you met with the environmental department of stewardship, et cetera, because part of this would be included in that. Other uses.
There's a general meeting next week. There's a meeting, quarterly meeting in October for the liaisons. I will definitely attend the October meeting. I'm going to try to make the August 25th meeting. I had a long discussion with Kendra earlier this week, but things are just sort of in a very infant stage in this whole process, and just kind of getting their feet under themselves, and so there's not a whole lot to report right now, but I'm sure that will be there'll be more going forward. I'd like to maybe perhaps figure out who's going to take on this role next year, and we'll work from there.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jim. I forgot about that. That's another role to fill for next year. Lincoln, are there any on this list that are ready to come to before the commission?
I don't think so at this point. One of the things on the agenda for the quarterly meeting with the Preservation Trust is their conservation plan update. So that'll be interesting and will relate in particular to our overall goal and resiliency and those kinds of topics. So I'm not sure where they are. It'll be very interesting to hear.
Okay. All right. Very good then. Anybody have anything else that you think should be added as an agenda item coming up?
Yeah, Sandy, I do.
Yes.
I think that these are all really good items on the list, and some of them are huge items, which some of them probably are most appropriate, I think, for our annual retreat, but we could be working toward those. But there are, and one of them, the TDR, transfer of development rights. I don't know how that got on the list, but it's that's also a huge item that I don't. I'm not sure that that's really a land bank concern or not, but we can talk about that. Anyway, there are two items that I'd like to see added. I don't know about the timing, but I'd like to see them stay on the list as placeholders. And those are, first of all, our REIT renewal, which is coming up in a couple of years. And secondly, I just lost the second one. I should have written it down. It'll come back and I'll email you. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay, anyone? Yes.
I'm sorry, Sandy, it just came back to me. And it's an item that you mentioned in one of our recent past meetings, which is non-traditional, quote unquote, uses of land bank land.
Right.
And I think to put that outcome of the environmental stewardships current study. And that's fine, but again, I'd like to see that stay on the list as a placeholder because I think it's an important topic. Thanks.
Okay. Non-traditional uses, potential non-traditional uses of land bank lands. Okay. All right. So if there is nothing else to be added or comments to be made, we will adjourn the meeting. Sound good? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.